While Daniel splurges on a $16,000 watch for his girlfriend and books a ski trip to Aspen using our life savings, I'm lying in my hospital bed reviewing documents that will freeze his access to the Wilson family trust he thinks only he controls. As his birthday celebration approaches, a party I've secretly helped his mother plan despite my illness, I'm orchestrating the biggest financial wake-up call of his privileged life. He has no idea that his supposedly helpless wife has been the alternate trustee of his family's fortune for the past 5 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My hand trembles slightly as I sign another document, though not from weakness. 4 months in the Pacific Northwest Medical Center battling a rare autoimmune condition hasn't diminished my resolve. It's strengthened it. Through the window of my private room, I can see the Portland skyline where Daniel is currently shopping for his girlfriend, Megan, at Pioneer Place Mall. The irony isn't lost on me. The same mall where he bought my engagement ring 6 years ago. The same credit card that just notified me of a $16,000 charge at Rolex. "Mrs. Wilson, are you absolutely certain about the timing?" Olivia asks, her voice a mixture of professional concern and personal support. My college roommate turned top-tier attorney watches me with cautious eyes, her tablet displaying another set of documents requiring my signature. "We could wait until after your treatment cycle is completed next week." I turn my phone toward her, showing Daniel's latest Instagram story. The timestamp reads 15 minutes ago. "Living my best life. Some people deserve only the finest." The photo shows a champagne flute at the Rolex boutique's VIP lounge, his monogrammed shirt cuff just visible in the frame. The custom shirt I'd given him for our anniversary last year. "The timing," I say, signing another paper with surprising steadiness, "is perfect." My phone buzzes with a text from Daniel. "Late meeting with investors tonight, babe? Don't worry. About dinner. Nurse can help if you need anything. Rest up. Love you." I've saved every message like this from the past 4 months. Each one corresponds perfectly with restaurant charges, hotel bookings, or shopping sprees. The ones he doesn't realize I track through our joint accounts. The ones that align perfectly with Megan's not-so-subtle Instagram posts, each tagged, with hints about her generous man and secret getaways. What Daniel doesn't know is that I've been aware for months. Every business dinner, every client emergency, every significant withdrawal from our joint savings account that now sits nearly empty. I've documented it all. But unlike what most might expect from a betrayed spouse, I didn't confront him. I didn't call him sobbing from my hospital bed or demand explanations for the dwindling balance of our accounts. Instead, I did what the Wilson family had unknowingly taught me to do. I followed the money. This document, Olivia points to a particularly important paper, will initiate the trust fund audit once you sign. After this, there's no going back. I think about this morning's video call, how Daniel showed me the flowers he claimed to have sent to my room. They never arrived. How he promised we'd take that dream trip to Italy once I recovered. Meanwhile, I'd already seen the Aspen ski resort reservations he'd made, not for us, but for him and Megan next month, paid for, with the last $12,000 from our emergency savings account. "Good," I say, my signature flowing across the paper. That's exactly what I want. My phone lights up with another notification, a post from Megan showing off a distinctive Rolex box captioned, "When he knows exactly what you deserve." I screenshot it, noting the time and date. It matches perfectly with the purchase notification from our joint credit card, the one Daniel thinks I'm too sick and medicated to monitor. "The forensic accounting team will begin their investigation on Monday morning," Olivia explains, organizing the papers. "Based on what you've already uncovered about the trust fund manipulations, they'll likely find twice as much as we already know." "I've already found more," I say, pulling up a folder on my tablet. "Here's every transaction he's tried to hide through that shell company he set up 3 months ago." The one where Megan mysteriously became an executive consultant, despite her only experience being as a part-time yoga instructor. Olivia's eyes widen as she scrolls through the documents. This is incredibly thorough, Emma. I've had a lot of free time, I reply dryly. You know, between treatments and blood transfusions. As if on cue, my phone buzzes with a notification from our neighborhood group chat. Someone is planning a block party next weekend. Daniel responds immediately. Sorry, everyone. We'll be in Seattle for business that weekend. I suppress a laugh. I know about that business trip, too. I've seen the dinner reservations at Aspen's most exclusive restaurant and the couple's massage booking at the St. Regis. Spa, all charged to our increasingly strained credit card. Last one, Olivia says, sliding the final paper across the adjustable hospital table. This initiates the full trust fund investigation and temporarily freezes all unusual transactions pending review. I don't hesitate. My signature flows across the paper, years of anger and betrayal channeled into each curve and stroke of my name. Another notification pops up on my phone. Daniel going live on Instagram from what's supposedly his investor dinner. The background shows the distinctive decor of La Provence, his and Megan's favorite date spot. Let them celebrate, I say, adjusting my position in the hospital bed, wincing slightly at the pull of the IV line. By Monday morning, they'll have a very different story to share. Olivia gathers the papers, her expression both impressed and slightly concerned. You know, in 15 years of handling family trust disputes, I've never seen anyone quite as prepared, I suggest, picking up my water cup, or maybe just tired of being underestimated. As Olivia leaves with the executed documents, my phone buzzes one last time. Daniel sending his nightly check-in. Miss you, beautiful. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Rest well. I smile, typing back. Sleep well, darling. Monday's going to be interesting. He'll think it's just another loving message from his trusting, bedridden wife. But then again, he always did underestimate me. That's about to become his most expensive mistake. Little does he know that while he's been playing his games, I've been playing a much longer one. 5 years ago, when Daniel's father Nathan had a stroke, I was the one who helped reorganize the family's estate planning. Daniel was too busy with his networking events to attend the meetings. He never bothered to read the updated trust documents, the ones that made me, his supposedly financially naive wife, the alternate trustee of the Wilson family fortune. Monday morning can't come soon enough. The morning after signing those initial papers, I asked the nurse to help me look my best. It's a rare request. Most days I'm content with the bare minimum, focused solely on enduring the treatments that leave me exhausted and weak. But today is different. Today, Dr. Jenkins is discussing my discharge plan, and Daniel has promised to attend. I wear the cashmere Loro Piana sweater Daniel's mother Grace sent me, apply light makeup to camouflage the pallor that 4 months of hospitalization has left on my face, and even ask the hospital stylist to blow out my thinning hair. The mirror reflects exactly what Daniel expects to see. His delicate, grateful wife, the former art history major he loves to introduce as his beautiful but financially clueless partner at family gatherings. If he only knew I spent 4 years managing acquisitions at Morgan Stanley before we met. Good morning, babe, Daniel calls out as he breezes into my hospital room, 20 minutes late for the appointment with Dr. Jenkins. He's clearly hungover, though trying to hide it behind designer sunglasses and the coffee cup from our favorite local roaster. You look amazing, he says, kissing my forehead. I catch a whiff of expensive cologne attempting to mask what smells distinctly like last night's whiskey and someone else's perfume. The same Joe Malone scent I've noticed in Megan's Instagram posts. Thank you for coming, I say, genuine gratitude in my voice, though not for the reasons he assumes. Every appearance he makes at the hospital adds to the narrative I'm carefully constructing. The devoted husband who deserves sympathy and understanding, not scrutiny of his financial activities. Dr. Jenkins arrives, reviewing my chart with encouraging, News. Your latest tests show significant improvement, Emma. I think we can start discussing discharge planning for next week. That's fantastic news, Daniel exclaims, squeezing my hand for the benefit of the doctor. I can't wait to have you home. I'm sure he can't. Having me confined to the hospital has given him unprecedented freedom to drain our accounts without daily oversight. You'll need to continue treatments as an outpatient, Dr. Jenkins continues, and full recovery will take several more months of rest and rehabilitation. She'll have everything she needs, Daniel assures him. I've been setting up a comfortable recovery space at home. A bold lie. Last week, he converted my home office into a media room. A convenient excuse to remove the desk where I might have established a recovery workspace with access to our financial documents. After Dr. Jenkins leaves, Daniel checks his phone, constantly, clearly anxious to escape. I've got to run to a quick client meeting. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story, he says eventually. But this is great news, babe. I'll make sure everything's perfect for when you come home. Actually, I say, keeping my voice deliberately weak. Could you stop by the bank today? I'm worried about some notification I got about our savings account. Probably just confusion from my medications. A flash of panic crosses his face before he controls it. What notification? Something about a large withdrawal? I'm sure it's nothing. Maybe just a mistake. I'll handle it, he says quickly. You focus on getting better. Don't stress about financial stuff. That's my department, remember? Oh, I remember. Just like I remember the exact amount in our savings account before my hospitalization, $175,000, and the current balance, $3,216.78. As soon as Daniel leaves, I text Olivia. He took the bait, expecting emergency account transfers within the hour. Within 15 minutes, my phone signals an alert from our joint account. Daniel has transferred the remaining $3,216.78 to his personal account. Another alert shows he's attempting to increase the credit limit on our joint card. I smile, knowing that every financial move he makes is now being monitored by Olivia's team and the trust fund auditors. Each desperate attempt to cover his tracks only adds to the evidence being compiled. My phone buzzes with a text from Ryan, Daniel's best friend who has no idea of the role he's playing in all this. Hey Emma, hope you're feeling better. Quick. Question. Did Daniel mention where he's going next month? Grace is trying to plan something for his birthday and wanted to make sure he'll be in town. Perfect. I think he mentioned a business trip to Seattle, but he's been so busy lately I might be confused. Maybe check with him directly. This will force Daniel to either come clean about Aspen or create yet another lie, one that will further complicate his already tangled web of deceptions. I spend the rest of the afternoon resting and reviewing the final details with Olivia via our encrypted messaging app. The pieces are falling into place exactly as planned. By evening, my phone shows a flurry of financial activities. Daniel. Moving money between accounts, applying for a personal loan, and even contacting his mother. I can almost picture him in panic mode, realizing that the funds he needs for his Aspen getaway are now compromised. Mrs. Wilson? A nurse enters with my evening medications. Your mother-in-law is here to see you. Grace Wilson enters my room carrying a bouquet of peonies, my favorite flowers that Daniel always forgets I love. At 65, she remains a striking presence, her silver hair perfectly styled, her cashmere wrap a silent testament to the family wealth she grew up with and married into. Emma, darling, she says, kissing my cheek. You look so much better than when I visited last week. The new treatment protocol is working wonders, I reply, genuinely fond of Grace despite her blind spot when it comes to her son. Daniel. Called me? She says, arranging the flowers in a vase. He seemed concerned about some financial matters. Oh, I keep my expression innocent. Something about needing a short-term loan for some investment opportunity. I told him to speak with his father about trust fund matters. I don't involve myself in those details. I nod understandingly. Daniel works so hard managing everything. While I'm sick, I worry he's taking on too much. Grace pats my hand. That's why we're so grateful he has you, dear. Someone who appreciates his efforts. If she only knew those efforts included emptying our savings to impress a yoga instructor with luxury vacations. The birthday celebration next week, Grace continues. Are you sure you'll be up for attending? We could postpone. Absolutely not, I insist. The doctor says I can have a brief outing, and I wouldn't miss Daniel's birthday for anything, after all he's done for me during this illness. I let my voice trail off, the picture of a devoted wife. When Grace leaves, promising to handle all the party details, I send a quick update to Olivia. Grace visited. Daniel reached out to her for money. Operation proceeding as expected. Olivia's reply comes immediately. Trust fund audit officially begins tomorrow, 8 a.m. All documentation in place. Preliminary freezes already initiated on suspicious accounts. I settle back against my pillows, a sense of quiet satisfaction warming me more effectively than the hospital blankets. After months of betrayal and deception, justice is finally within reach. My phone lights up with a text from Daniel. Had to take care of some unexpected business matters. Eating dinner with clients. Don't wait up. Get your rest. I check Instagram. Sure. Enough. Megan has posted a story from La Provence again, captioned pre-vacation celebration with a ski emoji. Tomorrow morning, Daniel Wilson will discover that his financial house of cards is about to collapse. And I will be right here, watching it happen from the very hospital bed where he thought I was too weak and distracted to notice his betrayal. Monday morning arrives with a pristine blue sky over Portland, visible through my hospital room window. I've been awake since 5 a.m., my body humming with anticipation despite the exhaustion of ongoing treatments. At precisely 8 a.m., I receive Olivia's text. Audit initiated. Preliminary freezes in place. Trust fund administrators notified. I picture the scene at First Cascadia Financial, where the Wilson Family Trust is managed. Auditors arriving with their official documentation, system access being restricted, notification emails being sent to all authorized parties. My phone buzzes with an incoming call. Nathan Wilson, Daniel's father. Emma? His voice is concerned but controlled. I've just received some concerning notifications about the trust. Something about an emergency audit and transaction freeze? Nathan, I say, my voice deliberately fragile. I'm so sorry to worry you. There have been some irregularities I've noticed. Given my condition, I thought it safest to request a formal review before discussing it. The doctors warned me about stress. Of course. Nathan says quickly. At 70, his health is also precarious. Another factor Daniel has exploited. Don't worry yourself. I'll look into it immediately. Have you spoken with Daniel about this? I didn't want to burden him, I say. He's been working so hard while managing my care. You're a thoughtful wife, Nathan says warmly. Let me handle this. You focus on getting better. As I end the call, an alert pops up on my phone. Daniel attempting to access the trust fund's secondary investment account, the one he established last year supposedly for tax optimization. Access denied. Within minutes, my phone lights up with his call. Hey babe, I answer, my voice deliberately weak and tired. Emma? He sounds slightly breathless, an edge of panic in his voice. Did my dad call you about some trust fund issue? Yes, I murmur. Something about an audit? I didn't really understand. These medications make everything so foggy. But you signed something? Authorized something? The edge in his voice sharpens. The bank sent some routine documents last week. I signed what looked important. Was that wrong? I inject a note of worry. Daniel, is everything okay? Everything's fine, he says quickly. Just some misunderstanding. Nothing for you to worry about. How are you feeling today? We chat for a few more minutes, me playing the role of his fragile, medicated wife while he struggles to maintain his composure. As soon as we hang up, my phone buzzes with notifications of his increasingly desperate attempts to access various accounts, all being systematically denied or flagged for review. By noon, the dominoes are falling exactly as planned. Olivia sends updates as the audit progresses. Unauthorized transfers from trust to personal accounts identified. Shell company structure uncovered. Payments to M. Lawson, Megan, documented and flagged. I ask the nurse to help me shower and dress in actual clothes rather than hospital gowns. A small celebration of the day's progress. As I sit in the visitor's chair by the window, looking stronger than I have in weeks, my door opens without a knock. Daniel bursts in, his usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled, his eyes darting around my room as if financial salvation might be hiding. In a corner. Emma, he says, visibly relieved to find me alone. We need to talk about what's happening with the accounts. I tilt my head, the picture of confusion. What accounts, darling? The trust fund, the investment accounts. Everything's frozen. There must be some mistake with the paperwork you signed. I reach for my water, taking a slow sip. I'm not sure I understand. I thought your father handled all that. Daniel stops, running a hand through his hair. There's been a misunderstanding. The trust administrators are saying you authorized an emergency audit as alternate trustee. I widen my eyes. Me? But I don't know anything about managing trusts. You always say that yourself. The flash of frustration across his face is beautiful to witness. Emma, this is serious. I have financial obligations that need to be met immediately. Like what? I ask innocently. Business investments? Time-sensitive opportunities? He's pacing now, his designer shoes wearing a path in the hospital room's linoleum. Perhaps we should call Olivia, I suggest. She might understand what's happening. Your college roommate? What would she know about trust funds? She's a financial litigation attorney now, I say mildly. Specializes in trust fund disputes, actually. Daniel freezes mid-pace, something shifting in his expression, as he truly looks at me for perhaps the first time in months. Why would you have been talking to a trust fund litigation attorney? Rather than answer, I reach for my phone and pull up our joint account history. Daniel, what happened to our savings? The account is nearly empty. The quick calculation happens visibly on his face, determining whether to lie, which lie to tell, how to manage this unexpected confrontation. I've made some investments, he says finally. Temporary allocations that will pay off soon. I didn't want to worry you while you were dealing with your health issues. Investments, I repeat slowly. Like this one? I turn my phone toward him, showing a credit card statement with the Rolex purchase highlighted. That's, he starts. Or these. I swipe to show the Aspen reservations. Emma, you don't understand. Or perhaps this investment strategy. I swipe again to reveal Megan's Instagram feed, a damning chronicle of gifts, meals, and plans that perfectly align with our depleted accounts. The color drains from Daniel's face. You've been spying on me. No, Daniel. I've been protecting myself. For a moment, the hospital room is silent except for the distant beeping of medical equipment in the hallway. The trust fund will be unfrozen, he says finally, his voice hard. That's family money, my family money. Actually, I say, my voice gaining strength with each word. According to the trust documents, any trustee engaged in financial impropriety can be temporarily suspended pending full investigation. Your father established that clause specifically to protect the family legacy. You can't, he begins. I already have, I cut him off. The primary trustees have been notified of irregular transactions from the trust to shell companies, unauthorized distributions, and potentially fraudulent investment schemes. This is insane! Daniel's voice rises sharply. You're confused. The medications are affecting your judgment. I smile calmly. That's why I've had Olivia handling everything. The forensic accountants have been building the case for weeks. Everything is meticulously documented, Daniel. His face contorts with a mixture of rage and fear. You're my wife. You're supposed to support me, not investigate me. And you were supposed to honor our vows and protect me at my most vulnerable, I reply, maintaining my composure. Instead, you emptied our savings to entertain your girlfriend while I fought. For my health. Daniel's phone begins buzzing repeatedly. Likely trust administrators, his father, perhaps even his secondary bank notifying him of the expanding investigation. This isn't over, he warns, already moving toward the door, priorities shifting, visibly from convincing me to damage control. You're right, I agree. It's just beginning. Oh, and Daniel? I'll still attend your birthday celebration this weekend. Your mother has worked so hard planning it. The look he gives me before storming out would have intimidated me once. Now it only confirms what I already know. Daniel Wilson has finally realized he severely underestimated his supposedly fragile, financially naive wife. As the door closes behind him, I text Olivia. Phase 1 complete. He knows. Her response comes immediately. Excellent. Trust fund meeting scheduled for Wednesday. His financial records have been subpoenaed. Are you sure you're up for attending his birthday party Saturday? I smile, looking out at the Portland skyline where Daniel is undoubtedly making desperate calls, attempting to salvage his rapidly collapsing deception. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I reply. Some gifts need to be delivered in person. The morning after our confrontation, I settle into my hospital bed with newfound energy despite the physical toll of yesterday's emotional storm. The steady rhythm of medical equipment provides an oddly comforting soundtrack as I review Olivia's latest updates. Daniel has been busy. 14 attempts to access various frozen accounts, 3 calls to family attorneys who politely directed him to the trust administrators, and 1 desperate lunch with his father that ended with Nathan looking grave and disappointed. I adjust my position carefully, mindful of the IV line that remains my constant companion. Though Dr. Jenkins speaks optimistically about my discharge next week, my body still bears the marks of 4 months battling an autoimmune condition that appeared suddenly and viciously in what had been a perfectly healthy life. The irony doesn't escape me. Just as my physical strength began to fail, my awareness of Daniel's betrayal forced me to develop a different kind of strength. My phone lights up with a text from Grace. Daniel seemed upset at breakfast. Is everything all right with your treatment plan? Sweet, concerned Grace, always looking for medical explanations for her son's behavior rather than considering his character might be flawed. I respond with reassurance about my improving condition and deflect with questions about the upcoming birthday celebration. The Wilson family dynamics have always fascinated me. Nathan built his technology consulting firm from nothing, instilling in Daniel the expectation of excellence, but perhaps not the work ethic to achieve it honestly. Grace, from old Seattle money, softened every disappointment and smoothed every rough edge of her only son's upbringing. The result was a man who expected success without fully understanding the integrity required to truly earn it. A notification from my banking app confirms another attempt by Daniel to transfer funds from a previously untouched investment account, also denied. I forward the alert to Olivia with a simple message. Add this to the documentation. My door opens to reveal Dr. Jenkins with his characteristic gentle smile. You're looking remarkably well today, Emma. Your latest blood work shows significant improvement. I feel stronger, I admit, and it's not just physical. Each step of the plan unfolding gives me a sense of control I've been denied during months of medical uncertainty. As Dr. Jenkins examines me, his brow furrows slightly. Your husband mentioned concerns about your medication affecting your decision-making capabilities. He asked about adjusting your treatment plan. A cold wave of understanding washes over me. Did he now? I keep my voice even. And what did you tell him? That your cognitive function has remained excellent throughout your treatment, and that any changes to your medical care would be based solely on your physical needs, not external requests. Dr. Jenkins meets my eyes directly. Emma, is everything all right at home? Your husband seemed unusually insistent. This is unexpected. Daniel attempting to undermine my credibility through my medical care. I should have anticipated this move, but it still sends a chill through me. Dr. Jenkins, I begin carefully. My husband is facing some financial difficulties of his own making. He may be looking for ways to explain or excuse his actions. The doctor nods thoughtfully. I understand. For the record, I've documented your consistent mental clarity throughout your hospitalization. Your medical decisions have been thoughtful and informed, and I've seen no evidence of confusion or impaired judgment. I appreciate that, I say, realizing this unexpected documentation may prove valuable if Daniel attempts to challenge the trust fund audit on grounds of my supposed mental incapacity. After Dr. Jenkins leaves, I message Olivia immediately. Daniel attempted to have my doctor declare me mentally compromised, request medical records documenting my cognitive clarity throughout treatment. Her response is swift. Already anticipated this move. Medical declaration of competency being added to file. His desperation is showing. I smile faintly as I look out the window at the Portland skyline, clouds gathering over Mount Hood in the distance. When cornered, Daniel always escalates then reflects, a pattern I've observed throughout our marriage but never so clearly as now. My tablet chimes with an email notification. The forensic accountants have completed their preliminary review of the Wilson family trust transactions. Opening the secure document, I scan the findings with growing vindication. They've identified patterns of irregularities dating back 14 months, coinciding precisely with when I first became ill, before the formal diagnosis that led to my hospitalization. Daniel hadn't just taken advantage of my hospital stay. He'd begun siphoning funds the moment my health began to interfere with my ability to monitor our finances. The betrayal runs deeper than even I had suspected. A soft knock at my door interrupts my review. Nathan Wilson enters, looking every bit the successful patriarch, despite the obvious concern weighing on him. Emma, he says warmly, leaning down to kiss my cheek. You look stronger today. I feel stronger, I reply honestly. The new treatment? Protocol is working well. Nathan takes the visitor's chair, his movements betraying the slight stiffness of his 70 years. The stroke he suffered 5 years ago left minor but permanent effects, another vulnerability Daniel has exploited by claiming to protect his father from financial stresses. I've been reviewing the trust fund audit notifications, Nathan says directly, never one to waste time on prolonged pleasantries. The administrators mentioned you initiated the review personally. I nod, meeting his gaze steadily. I did. May I ask why? This is the moment I've prepared for, explaining to Nathan without seeming vindictive or irrational. I reach for my tablet. I think it's better if I show you. Over the next 30 minutes, I present Nathan with a carefully curated selection of evidence. Unauthorized transfers from trust accounts to shell companies Daniel created, expensive purchases documented in both our financial records and Megan's social media, the systematic emptying of our personal savings while I was bedridden. I present it methodically without emotional commentary, the way Nathan himself would approach a business problem. As he reviews each piece of evidence, Nathan's expression shifts from concern to shock, to a contained anger I've rarely seen from him. "How long have you known?" he asks finally, his voice tight. "I began noticing irregularities about 3 months ago. At first, I thought Daniel was just being careless with record-keeping. Then the patterns became too consistent to ignore." Nathan is quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the city his hard work helped build. "The alternate trustee provision was my idea," he says finally. "When we updated the trust after my stroke, Daniel was so busy with the company expansion that he just signed where the lawyers indicated. He probably never even read the clause, naming you as alternate trustee in case of impropriety. He always did consider paperwork beneath him," I observe quietly. Nathan turns back to me, his eyes sharp with the intelligence that built a business empire. "You've handled this with remarkable restraint, Emma. Many would have confronted him immediately, created a public scandal. That wouldn't protect the family legacy you've built," I reply simply. "And despite everything, I still care about that." Nathan nods slowly. "The Trust Fund Oversight Committee meets tomorrow. They'll want to speak with you. Olivia will attend as my representative. Dr. Jenkins doesn't want me leaving the hospital until next week." "Olivia Martinez?" Nathan raises an eyebrow. "Daniel mentioned you'd been speaking with her but seemed to think it was just female friendship." "Olivia specialized in trust fund litigation after we graduated. She's been instrumental in helping me document everything properly." I hesitate, then add, "I didn't want emotions to cloud the process. This needed to be handled properly, legally." "I see you've thought of everything," Nathan says, and I detect a note of respect beneath his weariness. What happens next is largely out of my hands. The trust has governance protocols that activate automatically once evidence of misuse is presented. "I understand," I say. "I've reviewed those protocols thoroughly." Nathan stands, looking suddenly older than his years. "I should go. Grace is waiting in the car. I told her I needed to discuss your medical care privately." He pauses at the door. "Daniel was supposed to join us for dinner tonight. He's not answering his phone." "He's likely at the Riverside Grill," I say. "Table 11, by the fireplace. It's where he takes Megan on Tuesday evenings." Nathan's jaw tightens, but he simply nods once before leaving. Alone again, I sink back against my pillows, suddenly exhausted. Confrontations, even necessary ones conducted with perfect composure, drain the limited energy my healing body possesses. Still, satisfaction warms me as I check my secure messages from Olivia. Trust committee documentation complete. Meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. tomorrow. Nathan Wilson has requested to attend as observer. Everything is proceeding according to plan, yet the weight of it all settles heavily on me. Despite Daniel's betrayal, dismantling a marriage of 6 years brings a particular kind of grief. Mourning not just what was lost, but what never truly existed. My phone buzzes with a call from an unknown number. I answer cautiously. "Is this Emma Wilson?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Yes, who's calling?" A pause. "This is Megan Lawson. I think we need to talk." The unexpected contact sends a pulse of adrenaline through me. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone," she says, her voice tense. "I'm in the hospital cafeteria. Daniel doesn't know I'm here." I consider my options quickly. This unexpected development could provide additional insights or complications. "I can meet in the garden courtyard," I offer. "I'm allowed short walks on hospital grounds. 20 minutes? "I'll be there," she confirms before hanging up. I message my nurse about taking a brief outdoor break, then carefully remove my IV line according to the protocol I've learned during my lengthy stay. Changing from my hospital gown into a simple dress and cardigan takes more effort than it should. A reminder of how much strength my illness has stolen. The hospital's small garden courtyard offers minimal privacy, but enough distance from the building to avoid being overheard. I spot her immediately. younger than me by perhaps 5 years, athletic build, the distinctive copper hair I've seen in so many Instagram posts. She's pacing nervously, designer handbag clutched tightly against her side. "Megan," I say quietly as I approach, leaning slightly on the walking cane I've been using for short distances. She turns, surprise crossing her features as she takes in my appearance. Whatever Daniel has told her about my condition, the reality of my physical frailty seems unexpected. "Emma," she acknowledges, gesturing to a nearby bench. "Should we sit? You look ill," I suggest with a faint smile. That tends to happen during extended hospitalizations. We sit, an uncomfortable silence stretching between us. I wait, letting her gather her thoughts. "Daniel's accounts are frozen," she finally says. "All of them. He's not handling it well." "I imagine not," I reply neutrally. She fidgets with her handbag strap. "He said you're confused, that the medications are making you paranoid, that you've involved lawyers because you're not thinking clearly." "And you believed that?" Her eyes meet mine directly for the first time. "Not entirely. That's why I'm here." I study her carefully. There's fear in her expression, but also calculation. She's assessing her position in a rapidly changing situation. "What exactly did Daniel tell you about our finances?" I ask. Megan shifts uncomfortably. "That he has a substantial trust fund, that he runs his family's investments, that the consulting work I've been doing for his company is completely legitimate." "Consulting work," I repeat, "for a company that exists primarily on paper, with no clients, no services, and no products." Her face flushes. "I have a business degree. The advisory role is real. The company is a shell, Megan, created specifically to funnel money from the Wilson Family Trust into accounts Daniel could access without oversight. Your consulting fees came directly from trust funds. He had no authorization to allocate." She stares at me, uncertainty flickering across her features. "That's not... he wouldn't." I reach for my phone, pulling up the forensic accountant's preliminary report. "The first payment to you was processed on March 12th. $90,000 for strategic consultation to a company formed just 3 days earlier. 2 days after that payment cleared, you and Daniel flew to Cabo San Lucas. First class, 5-star resort." The color drains from her face. "I didn't know. He said it was all above board." "What did you think a part-time yoga instructor with a recently activated business license was consulting on that would warrant a $90,000 payment?" Her silence is answer enough. "Here's what you need to understand," I continue, my voice calm but firm. "The trust fund audit has already uncovered enough evidence to support criminal charges for financial fraud. When the Wilson family attorneys meet tomorrow, they'll decide whether to handle this privately or involve the authorities." "Criminal charges?" Megan whispers, genuine fear replacing calculation in her expression. "The trust has a fiduciary responsibility to its beneficiaries. Daniel has misappropriated approximately $1.4 million over the past 14 months. That's not something they can simply overlook." Megan stands abruptly, pacing the small garden path. "He promised me everything was legitimate, that once your situation was resolved, we would have a life together. The business, the trust fund, everything." The implication sends a chill through me despite the warm spring afternoon. "Once my situation was resolved," I repeat quietly. She has the decency to look ashamed. "I didn't want anyone to be hurt. He said your condition was terminal, that it was just a matter of time, that you'd discussed arrangements." The calculated cruelty of Daniel's lie leaves me momentarily speechless, using my illness to manipulate Megan, positioning himself as the soon-to-be widowed husband, while systematically draining accounts he expected to control after my supposed death. "My condition is serious but not terminal," I say when I find my voice again. "With proper treatment, I'm expected to make a full recovery. Megan sinks back onto the bench, her composure crumbling. He's been lying about everything, hasn't he? Almost certainly, I confirm. What happens now? She asks. Vulnerability replacing the earlier calculation. That depends partly on you, I tell her honestly. The transfers to your consulting company make you technically complicit in the financial fraud, whether you understood it or not. Fear flashes across her face. I can't go to jail. My parents, my career. Provide a complete statement to the trust investigators about your relationship with Daniel, the formation of the consulting company, and any conversations about the Wilson family finances. Return any remaining funds from the consulting payments. Do that, and I'll personally request that the trust committee consider you another victim of Daniel's deceptions rather than an accomplice. Relief floods her expression. I'll tell them everything. I have texts, emails. She hesitates. There's something else you should know. Daniel has been meeting with someone named Victor about liquidating art collections or something. I overheard them discussing bypassing the freeze last week. This is new information. Potentially concerning. The Wilson family has a valuable art collection, technically owned by the trust but displayed in family homes, including pieces in our house. Thank you for telling me, I say, making a mental note to alert Olivia. Immediately. As Megan stands to leave, she pauses, looking down at me with a mixture of emotions I can't quite decipher. For what it's worth, he always said you were brilliant, that marrying you was the smartest financial move he ever made because of your family connections. I think he knew exactly how intelligent you are. He just never expected you to use it against him. After she leaves, I remain in the garden, processing this new information. Daniel had recognized my capabilities from the beginning, not as something to value, but as an asset to exploit. The realization crystallizes something I've felt but couldn't articulate throughout our marriage. I was never a partner to him, merely a resource. Back in my hospital room, I update Olivia about Megan's visit and the concerning information about the art collection. She responds immediately. Adding art inventory verification to trust audit. We'll have Megan's statement taken today. Nathan Wilson called, requesting private meeting with you tomorrow morning before trust committee convenes. I message my confirmation, then sink back against my pillows, suddenly exhausted. The emotional toll of the day weighs heavily on my already taxed system. As I drift toward an uneasy sleep, my phone buzzes with a text from Daniel. We need to talk. This has gone far enough. I don't respond. Tomorrow brings the trust committee meeting, and I need all my strength for what's to come. I wake before dawn, my body somehow sensing the significance of the day ahead. The soft beeping of medical equipment provides a steady counterpoint to my racing thoughts as I mentally review the trust documents, the evidence compiled, the statements prepared. Today, Daniel faces the consequences of his actions in a way he's likely never experienced before. Nathan arrives precisely at 8, his expression grave but resolved. He carries a small portfolio, the same hand-tooled leather case I've seen. Him bring to important business meetings. Emma? He greets me, taking the visitor's chair. How are you feeling this morning? Ready, I answer simply. He nods, understanding the weight behind my response. Before the committee meets, there are things I need to say to you privately. I wait, giving him space to gather his thoughts. When Daniel brought you home 6 years ago, I saw something in you that reminded me of myself at your age. A particular kind of intelligence. Not just book smarts, but awareness. The ability to observe systems and understand how they work. Nathan opens his portfolio, removing a thin sheaf of papers. That's why I insisted on the alternate trustee provision when we updated the trust documents after my stroke. This is a revelation I hadn't anticipated. You suspected Daniel even then? Nathan sighs heavily. I knew my son, his entire life. He's taken shortcuts. Charm instead of effort. Manipulation instead of merit. Grace never saw it, or chose not to. But in business, I watched him take credit for others' work, inflate his contributions, deflect his failures. Yet you were grooming him to take over the family businesses, I observe. Hope can override judgment, even in the most pragmatic of us. Nathan straightens in his chair, businesslike once more. The trust committee will meet at 2, based on the evidence already reviewed. They're prepared to invoke the moral conduct clause to suspend Daniel's access to all trust assets pending full investigation. The moral conduct clause, one of the oldest provisions in the Wilson family trust, dating back to its establishment by Nathan's grandfather. It empowers the trust committee to temporarily freeze a beneficiary's access if they engage in behavior that endangers the family's financial or social standing. What about the art collection? I ask, remembering Megan's warning. Security teams are conducting a full inventory at all family properties today, including your home. If anything has been removed or arranged for sale, we'll know within hours. I nod, relieved that this potential loophole is being addressed. And Grace? How is she handling this? Nathan's composed expression falters slightly. She's struggling. 68 years is a long time to hold certain beliefs about your child. Having those beliefs challenged so fundamentally is painful. I feel a pang of genuine sympathy for my mother-in-law. Despite her blind spot concerning Daniel, Grace has always been kind and welcoming to me. Learning of her son's betrayal, not just of his marriage, but of the family legacy she prizes, must be devastating. I've requested she not attend the committee meeting, Nathan continues. This doesn't require her presence, and hearing the details would only cause unnecessary pain. I understand, I say softly. Please tell her I'm thinking of her. Nathan studies me for a moment. You continue to surprise me, Emma. Many in your position would be focused solely on revenge. This isn't about revenge, I correct him gently. It's about consequences, about truth. Daniel made his choices knowing the potential outcomes. Choices have consequences, Nathan nods. A lesson my son never fully grasped. He stands, straightening his impeccable suit jacket. Olivia Martinez will attend the committee meeting. As your representative? Yes. Dr. Jenkins doesn't want me leaving the hospital yet, and honestly, I don't have the physical stamina for a potentially lengthy meeting. Rest assured, your interests will be thoroughly represented. Nathan moves toward the door, then pauses. Emma, regardless of what happens with Daniel, you remain family to Grace and me. I want you to know that. The unexpected sentiment brings a sudden warmth to my eyes. Thank you, Nathan. That means more than you know. After he leaves, I message Olivia with a final review of our strategy for the trust committee meeting. Her response is characteristically concise. All prepared. We'll update you in real time. Daniel has requested to address the committee personally. Of course he has. Daniel always believes in his ability to charm his way out of consequences. But the trust committee isn't composed of people susceptible to his practiced charisma. They're financial professionals with fiduciary responsibilities and legal obligations. At precisely 2 o'clock, Olivia initiates our secure messaging channel, providing live updates from the trust committee meeting at First Cascadia Financial's downtown offices. Committee of 5 present. Nathan attending as observer. Daniel. Arrived with attorney James Whitman. James Whitman, an expensive corporate lawyer known for aggressive tactics. Daniel is pulling out all stops. The updates continue as the meeting progresses. Forensic accounting team presenting evidence of unauthorized transfers. Documentation of shell company structure being reviewed. Daniel's attorney arguing medical stress impaired his judgment. Committee reviewing trust provisions regarding mental capacity claims. I watch the messages appear in real time, imagining the sleek conference room where Daniel's financial future is being determined. After nearly an hour, a longer message appears. Daniel addressing committee directly, claiming your illness created emotional distress that led to poor financial decisions, positioning relationship with M. Lawson as emotional support during difficult time, suggesting family counseling rather than financial penalties. The audacity is breathtaking even by Daniel's standards, characterizing his affair and financial fraud as responses to the emotional burden of my illness, as if he were the victim rather than the perpetrator. 20 minutes later, Olivia reports. Committee in private deliberation. Daniel, an attorney, asked to wait in reception area. The wait is excruciating. I find myself pacing my hospital room despite the fatigue weighing on my limbs, checking my phone every few minutes. Finally, after nearly 40 minutes, multiple messages arrive in quick succession. Decision reached. Committee invoking moral conduct clause. Daniel's access to all trust assets suspended pending completion of full investigation. Primary residence exempted from asset freeze as medical necessity for your recovery. Security team confirms unauthorized removal of 3 paintings from family collection. Police being notified. Nathan Wilson requested private meeting. With Daniel. Currently in progress. I sink into the visitor's chair, relief and vindication washing over me in equal measure. The trust committee has recognized the truth of Daniel's actions and responded appropriately. The primary residence exemption means I'll have our home for my recovery, a consideration I hadn't expected but deeply appreciate. My phone rings, Olivia calling rather than messaging. It's done, she says when I answer. The committee was unanimous. Daniel's access to all trust accounts, properties, and assets is suspended effective immediately. The only exception is your primary residence, which they've designated as medically necessary for your recovery. And the paintings? I ask, concerned about Nathan's precious art collection. Security confirmed 3 pieces missing from your home, valued at approximately $780,000 total. They were allegedly being transported to an art dealer in Seattle for authentication, according to paperwork Daniel signed yesterday. Can they be recovered? The transport company has been contacted. The pieces hadn't yet been delivered. Nathan is arranging for their return to the family collection storage facility. I close my eyes briefly, grateful this final attempt at financial manipulation was caught in time. How did Daniel take the committee's decision? Olivia's hesitation is telling. Not well. There was a scene. He accused you of manipulating his parents, questioned your mental stability, threatened legal action. Eventually, security had to escort him from the building. And Nathan? Calm throughout. After the committee announced their decision, he requested a private meeting with Daniel. I don't know what was said, but when they emerged, Nathan looked resigned. Daniel looked shaken. I can imagine the conversation. Nathan finally confronting his son without Grace's moderating presence, perhaps sharing hard truths about observed patterns of behavior throughout Daniel's life. What happens next? I ask. The forensic accountants continue their full audit, which will take several weeks. The committee will reconvene when that's complete to determine permanent measures. In the meantime, Daniel receives a basic living stipend from the trust, generous by normal standards but vastly reduced from his previous lifestyle. And the birthday celebration this weekend? Grace called while the committee was deliberating. She's determined to proceed as planned. Says the family needs normalcy right now. Nathan seemed skeptical, but agreed to support her decision. The idea of attending a celebration for Daniel after today's events seems surreal, but I understand Grace's desperate attempt to maintain some facade of family cohesion. I'll be there, I decide. Dr. Jenkins has approved a brief outing, and I promised Grace. After ending the call with Olivia, I sit quietly, absorbing the events of the day. The justice I sought has been set in motion, yet there's no elation, only a calm sense of rightness. Actions have consequences. a simple principle that Daniel never fully grasped despite his prestigious education and privileged upbringing. My contemplation is interrupted by a knock at my door. A nurse enters with a magnificent bouquet of fresh flowers. "These just arrived for you, Mrs. Wilson." The card reads simply, "With respect and gratitude, Nathan Wilson." A lump forms in my throat at this unexpected gesture of support. Throughout this ordeal, I've been braced for the possibility that Nathan and Grace might ultimately side with their son despite the evidence. This simple acknowledgement means more than Nathan could possibly know. As evening falls over Portland, my phone remains conspicuously silent. No calls or messages from Daniel, an unusual development given his typical pattern of escalation when challenged. This silence concerns me more than an angry outburst would have. Daniel at his most dangerous has always been Daniel at his most calculating. I message Olivia my concerns, and her response confirms she's already addressed this possibility. Security system at your home has been updated. Trust security team will monitor remotely until your discharge. Police have been notified of potential domestic situation. Reassured by these precautions, I settle back against my hospital pillows, fatigue finally overcoming the adrenaline that's carried me through the day. Tomorrow brings new challenges, preparations for my hospital discharge early next week, and the surreal prospect of attending Daniel's birthday celebration this weekend. For now, though, I allow myself to rest, secure in the knowledge that truth has prevailed and justice, methodical, documented, inescapable justice, is being served. The morning of Daniel's birthday celebration dawns with unexpected sunshine, streaming through my hospital room window. Portland's typically moody spring weather has decided to cooperate, casting Mount Hood in perfect clarity against a pristine blue sky. I take it as a good omen for what promises to be a challenging day. Dr. Jenkins has already visited, reviewing my discharge plan for Monday while providing clear parameters for today's brief excursion, no more than 3 hours away from medical. Supervision, strict medication timing, and immediate return if fatigue becomes overwhelming. A private nurse hired by Nathan will accompany me to the celebration at the Wilson family estate in West Hills, an arrangement that provides both medical security and a graceful exit strategy if needed. Lisa, my favorite day shift nurse, helps me prepare with an enthusiasm that goes beyond professional duty. After months of seeing me in hospital gowns and minimal makeup, she seems personally invested in my transformation for this important appearance. "You look amazing," she declares as I apply a touch of blush to counter the lingering pallor of long illness. "No one would guess you're being discharged in 2 days." The woman in the mirror is still thinner than she should be, with shadows beneath her eyes that concealer can only partially disguise. But there's a vitality present that has been absent for months. Whether from improving health or the satisfaction of justice in progress, I look more alive than I have since my diagnosis. My phone buzzes with a text from Olivia. Security confirmed arrival of all catering and event staff at the Wilson estate. Nothing unusual to report. Daniel spent the night at the downtown Marriott, checked out at 9 a.m. Daniel's whereabouts have been closely monitored since the trust committee meeting. Not out of vindictiveness, but prudence. His unpredictable behavior and desperate financial situation create a potentially volatile combination. Another text arrives from Grace. "Everything ready for the celebration, so looking forward to seeing you, dear. Driver will collect you at 1 p.m. Poor Grace, clinging to the illusion of family harmony even as her world shifts beneath her feet. I respond with warm thanks, omitting mention of the private nurse arrangement Nathan has already made. At noon, the private nurse arrives, a composed woman in her 40s named Marianne, who comes with impeccable references and a reassuringly no-nonsense manner. She reviews my medical information thoroughly, organizing my medications with professional precision. "Mrs. Wilson has briefed me on the situation," she says, referring to Grace. "I understand discretion is as important as medical attention today." I appreciate her tact. Grace has likely provided a sanitized version of family circumstances, but Marianne seems skilled at reading between lines. As we prepare to leave, Dr. Jenkins makes a final visit. "Remember, 3 hours maximum," he cautions. "Your body is still healing. Pushing too hard could set back your discharge." I promise compliance, then allow Marianne to wheel me through the hospital corridors to the waiting car, a Mercedes SUV with Nathan's longtime driver Michael at the wheel. The journey from downtown Portland to the Wilson estate in West Hills takes 20 minutes in light weekend traffic, winding upward through increasingly exclusive neighborhoods until we reach the gated drive that marks Wilson family territory. The estate was Nathan's first major purchase after his company went public. 15 acres of manicured grounds surrounding a craftsman-inspired mansion that somehow manages to be both impressive and tasteful. Unlike many tech millionaires, Nathan's architectural preferences lean toward warm woods and natural stone rather than steel and glass. As we approach, I can see the celebration preparations in full swing. A white tent has been erected on the back lawn overlooking the valley. Catering staff move efficiently between house and tent. Floral arrangements in spring colors adorn the entrance. Grace appears immediately as Michael helps me from the car, her arms outstretched in welcome. "Emma, darling, you look wonderful." I accept her embrace, noting the slight fragility in her usually perfect composure. The past few days have taken their toll, though she's made valiant efforts with hair, makeup, and a designer dress in her signature blue. "Thank you for coming," she murmurs as she releases me. "It means so much to have family together today." I don't correct her optimistic fiction, instead introducing Marianne as the nurse Dr. Jenkins insisted accompany me, which Grace accepts with grateful acknowledgement. "Nathan's in his study," she informs me. "He'd like a word before guests begin arriving. Can you manage the stairs, or shall I ask him to come down?" "I can manage," I assure her, though Marianne's raised eyebrow suggests professional skepticism. The main staircase rises gracefully from the grand foyer, its handcrafted banister smooth beneath my hand as I ascend with deliberate care, Marianne a discreet presence behind me. The physical exertion reminds me of Dr. Jenkins' cautions. My body is indeed still recovering, each step requiring more effort than it should. Nathan's study occupies the southeast corner of the upper floor, a space that balances masculine traditionalism with surprising warmth. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves line 2 walls, while windows offer commanding views of downtown Portland and, on clear days like today, Mount Hood beyond. He rises as I enter, concern evident in his expression. "Emma, thank you for coming. Please, sit." He gestures to a comfortable leather chair positioned near his desk. I settle gratefully, the climb having taxed my limited stamina. Marianne positions herself discreetly near the door after confirming I don't need immediate assistance. "How are you feeling?" Nathan asks, genuine concern in his voice. "Well enough for a brief appearance," I answer honestly. "Though I'll likely need to leave before the celebration concludes." He nods understanding. "Grace appreciates your presence more than you know. She's struggling with reconciling the evidence against Daniel with her image of him." Mothers often see the best in their children, I observe without judgment. Sometimes to their detriment, Nathan agrees. He pauses, gathering his thoughts. "I wanted to speak with you privately before the other guests arrive. The trust administrator called this morning with an update." I straighten slightly, attention sharpened. "What have they found?" "The preliminary audit confirms our worst suspicions. Daniel has been systematically misappropriating trust assets for nearly 18 months. Beyond the direct transfers, we already identified, they've uncovered evidence of falsified investment reports, fabricated business expenses, and unauthorized art sales dating back to when your symptoms first appeared. The timeline confirms what I'd already suspected. Daniel began exploiting my illness from its earliest manifestation, seeing my decreased capacity for financial oversight as an opportunity rather than a responsibility. Additionally, Nathan continues, they've discovered communications with offshore banking entities suggesting plans for larger-scale fund transfers after my supposed death, I finish quietly. Nathan's expression confirms my assessment. It appears he anticipated a different outcome to your medical situation. The clinical language doesn't disguise the disturbing reality. Daniel had been planning financial maneuvers based on the expectation of my death, likely accelerating his timeline as my health improved instead of deteriorated. There's more, Nathan says, his voice hardening slightly. The security team completed their review of the art collection. In addition to the 3 paintings we already recovered, 4 more pieces are missing, smaller works that wouldn't be immediately noticed. In routine inventories, can they be traced? 2 have been located at a gallery in Vancouver. The others? Nathan hesitates. The others were apparently sold to private collectors through an intermediary 6 months ago. The money trail leads to an account in Megan Lawson's name. This new information adds another dimension to Megan's involvement. Was she a knowing accomplice rather than a manipulated pawn? Or perhaps something in between, willfully blind to the implications of Daniel's gifts? Have you spoken with Daniel about any of this? I ask. Nathan's expression grows grim. He arrived an hour ago to prepare for the celebration. When confronted about the additional missing artwork, he claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that the pieces were simply being reappraised for insurance purposes. Despite 2 already being sold, I note dryly. Indeed. Nathan sighs, heavily. He maintains that you've exaggerated financial discrepancies out of medication-induced paranoia, and that Olivia Martinez has manipulated the situation for her firm's financial gain. The familiar pattern of Daniel's defense: deny, deflect, discredit. I've witnessed this strategy throughout our marriage whenever he's confronted with uncomfortable truths. The trust committee is unmoved by these claims, Nathan continues. The evidence speaks for itself. However, Grace has requested that we proceed with today's celebration without public acknowledgement of the situation, for appearance's sake. Of course, I agree. Social performances have always been important to Grace. The idea of family discord becoming visible to their community would be unthinkable to her. Nathan glances at his watch. Guests will begin arriving shortly. Emma, whatever happens today, I want you to know that your place in this family remains secure. Grace and I have discussed this extensively. The reassurance touches me unexpectedly. Despite everything, I've grown to care deeply for my in-laws over the years. Thank you, Nathan, that means a great deal. As we prepare to rejoin the gathering downstairs, Nathan adds, one final thing, Daniel doesn't know you're being discharged on Monday. Grace thought it best not to mention it given the circumstances. I nod, understanding. My imminent return home represents yet another complication in an already complex situation. The property exclusion granted by the trust committee means I retain rights to our primary residence during my recovery, a fact Daniel is surely aware of but perhaps hasn't fully processed. Descending the stairs with Marianne's subtle support, I enter the growing celebration with practiced social grace. Grace has arranged comfortable seating for me in the conservatory, which offers views of arriving guests while providing a less crowded environment than the main reception areas. From this vantage point, I observe Portland's elite arriving in waves: technology executives who've worked with Nathan, financial professionals who manage Wilson Investments, family friends from West Hills social circles, even a state senator with whom Daniel plays golf. Perhaps 50 people will attend this carefully orchestrated performance of family unity and success. Daniel appears in the conservatory doorway, immaculately dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost the equivalent of a month's living stipend from the trust. His expression shifts rapidly from surprise to wariness to practiced charm as he approaches. Emma. He greets me with a society smile that doesn't reach his eyes. I didn't expect you to make it. A pleasant surprise. I wouldn't miss celebrating. Your birthday, I reply with matching public pleasantry. Especially after your mother went to such trouble with the arrangements. The underlying current between us remains unacknowledged as Daniel performs the role of attentive husband for any observing guests. Can I get you anything? A drink? Something from the buffet? I'm well taken care of, I assure him, gesturing to Marianne. Dr. Jenkins insisted on medical supervision for my outing. A flash of calculation crosses his features. How thoughtful, though I'm surprised he approved your attendance at all, given your delicate condition. The subtle emphasis carries his true message, a reminder of the medication-induced paranoia narrative he's attempting to establish. I smile serenely, refusing the bait. My condition improves daily. In fact, I'm being discharged on Monday. The news lands with visible impact despite Daniel's efforts to maintain composure. Discharged? That's unexpected. Is it? Dr. Jenkins has been quite optimistic about my progress for weeks. Our verbal chess match is interrupted by Grace's arrival with the state senator and his wife, necessitating a shift to public pleasantries. Daniel smoothly transitions to his charming public persona, though I note the slight tension in his shoulders as he processes the implications of my imminent return home. The celebration proceeds with carefully choreographed precision. Lunch is served in the tent, speeches are given with appropriate humor and warmth, and Daniel performs his role as grateful son and successful businessman with practiced ease. To casual observers, the Wilson family appears to be celebrating a joyous occasion without complication. Beneath this perfect surface, currents of tension flow. I notice Nathan watching Daniel with subdued sadness when he thinks no one is observing. Grace maintains her hostess perfection through sheer force of will, though the strain shows in momentary lapses when she believes herself unobserved. And Daniel, at the center of it all, navigates the event with increasing whiskey consumption, barely disguised in crystal tumblers. By mid-afternoon, I feel my limited stamina beginning to wane. Marianne notices immediately, discreetly checking my pulse and administering scheduled medication. We should consider departing within the half hour, she advises quietly. Your heart rate is elevated, and you're showing signs of fatigue. I nod agreement, genuinely feeling the strain of maintained social performance combined with physical weakness. As Marianne steps away to arrange our departure with Michael, Nathan approaches my seating area. You've done more than enough by coming, he says gently. Grace understands you need to rest. Thank you, I reply, genuine gratitude in my voice. Please tell her the celebration was lovely. As Nathan moves to inform Grace of our impending departure, Daniel materializes beside my chair, the scent of expensive whiskey evident despite his steady demeanor. Leaving so soon? He asks, his public smile firmly in place though his eyes remain cold. And just when the celebration is reaching its peak? Medical necessity, I explain simply. Doctor's orders. Daniel leans closer, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. This little performance doesn't change anything, Emma. You may have convinced my parents with your victim routine, but we both know what you're doing. I meet his gaze steadily. And what exactly am I doing, Daniel? Manipulating the situation. Using my parents' sympathy and your medical condition to position yourself. Very clever. His smile remains fixed for any observers, but venom laces his words. But ultimately futile. The Wilson family legacy is exactly that, for Wilsons. Not opportunistic wives who married into it. The irony of his accusation, projecting his own opportunism onto me, would be almost amusing if it weren't so predictable. I maintain my composed exterior as I respond. How interesting that you see it that way. the trust administrators seem to have a different perspective on who's been opportunistic with family resources. A flash of genuine anger breaks through, his mask momentarily before he regains control. Temporary setbacks based on misunderstandings. Once you're no longer influencing my parents with your fragile health displays, things will return to their natural order. Is that what you tell yourself? I ask quietly. That the forensic accounting reports, documented transfers, and missing artwork are all just misunderstandings? Daniel's jaw tightens despite his maintained smile. Enjoy your little victory while it lasts. I've weathered family disappointment before. This is no different. I think you'll find it's entirely different, I reply calmly. But we'll see on Monday, won't we? Monday? When I return home, to our house, which the trust committee has specifically exempted from the asset freeze as necessary for my medical recovery. I allow myself a small, genuine smile. I'm looking forward to sleeping in my own bed again after 4 months, aren't you? The implication lands precisely as intended. Daniel's expression hardens as he processes the reality that we will soon be sharing living space despite everything that has transpired. Before he can respond, Marianne returns with Grace, signaling our departure preparations. Grace embraces me warmly, her social performance flawless despite the underlying family turmoil. Thank you for coming, darling. It meant the world to have you here. I wouldn't have missed it, I assure her, accepting her embrace with genuine affection despite everything. Grace has been caught in an impossible position, torn between maternal loyalty and undeniable evidence of her son's betrayal. As Marianne helps me toward the waiting car, I feel Daniel's gaze following, calculating, assessing, planning. The coming days will require vigilance as we navigate the new reality of our situation. His financial options severely limited, his deceptions exposed, Daniel represents an unpredictable element in my recovery plans. The return journey to the hospital passes in comfortable silence, the afternoon's social exertions having depleted my limited reserves. Once settled back in my room, I message Olivia with an update on the day's events and Daniel's concerning reaction to news of my imminent return home. Her response is characteristically direct. Security system upgrade complete. At your residence. Trust security team will monitor remotely 24/7. Local police precinct has been notified of potential domestic concerns upon your discharge. I've also drafted an emergency restraining order, unsigned but ready to file if needed. The precautions should be reassuring, yet I find myself troubled by their necessity. After 6 years of marriage, our relationship has deteriorated to security systems and potential legal interventions. Despite everything Daniel has done, there's a certain sadness in this reality. As evening falls, I review the discharge instructions. Dr. Jenkins has prepared medication schedules, physical therapy appointments, dietary requirements, activity restrictions. The road to full recovery remains long, but returning home represents a significant milestone. My phone buzzes with an unexpected message from Nathan. Thank you for today. Grace is resting now. Daniel left for downtown immediately after the celebration. Security team is monitoring the residence in preparation for your return. Call if you need anything at all. Nathan's continued support provides comfort as I prepare for Monday's transition. The Wilson family dynamics have shifted irrevocably, with Nathan and Grace apparently choosing truth over blind loyalty to their son, a development I hadn't fully anticipated when I initiated the trust fund audit. Sunday passes quietly with final discharge preparations. Dr. Jenkins conducts a thorough examination, confirms my improving blood work results, and reviews recovery protocols once more. The hospital administration processes paperwork, insurance, authorizations, and home care arrangements with surprising efficiency, likely influenced by Nathan's behind-the-scenes involvement. By Sunday evening, everything is prepared for Monday morning's discharge. I message Olivia one final time before settling in for my last night of hospital confinement. Discharge scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow. Security confirmed at residence? All systems in place, she responds. Trust security team has maintained continuous monitoring. No sign of Daniel at the property since trust committee meeting. His credit card was used at Portland Harbor Hotel bar until 1 a.m. last night. The information provides some reassurance, though Daniel's absence from our home raises questions about his intentions. Is he respecting the committee's decisions or planning some counteraction I haven't anticipated? Monday morning arrives with a sense of nervous anticipation. After 4 months confined to hospital rooms and limited medical facility areas, the prospect of returning to the outside world carries both excitement and anxiety. My body, though improving, remains weaker than I'd like. The autoimmune condition that brought me here is in remission, but requires ongoing treatment and monitoring. The discharge process proceeds smoothly. Dr. Jenkins providing final instructions and scheduling a follow-up appointment for Thursday. Remember, gradual reintegration is key, he emphasizes. Your body is still healing. Push too hard, and you risk setbacks. I promise compliance, genuinely committed to recovery protocols after experiencing the vulnerability of serious illness. Nathan has arranged for a private medical transport rather than standard hospital discharge services. Another thoughtful provision for comfort and security. As the transport vehicle approaches our West Hills home, I feel a complex mixture of emotions. This house, a modern craftsman design Daniel and I selected together early in our marriage, represents both the life we built and the deceptions that undermined it. The familiar driveway, landscaped gardens, and covered entry stir memories both pleasant and painful. The security team Nathan arranged meets us at the entrance, professional, discreet individuals who help with my luggage while conducting a final property sweep. All clear, Mrs. Wilson, the team leader confirms. The security system has been upgraded with additional cameras and monitoring. This panel by the door controls everything, and this panic button connects directly to both private security and local police. I thank him, accepting the necessary precautions while hoping they prove unnecessary. The home health aide Nathan has arranged for my first week of recovery. A capable woman named Eliza arrives simultaneously, quickly establishing herself in the guest room nearest the master suite. As I enter our home for the first time in 4 months, the contrast between memory and reality is jarring. The space itself remains largely as I left it, but subtle changes reflect Daniel's activities during my absence. Unfamiliar liquor bottles. In the bar cabinet, a guitar I've never seen leaning in a corner. Women's magazines on the coffee table that certainly aren't mine. Most noticeably, my presence has been systematically diminished. Photos of us together have been removed from prominent positions, replaced by generic artwork or Daniel's solo images. My books have been relegated to upper shelves, my favorite throw pillows stored away, my gardening magazines cleared from the sunroom table. This won't do it all, Eliza observes with practical directness. Shall I help you reclaim your space, Mrs. Wilson? Her matter-of-fact approach to this evidence of emotional erasure provides unexpected comfort. Yes, I decide. Let's start with the bedroom and work outward. The master suite reveals similar adjustments. My side of the closet compressed to accommodate expanded male wardrobe, my dresser drawers partially emptied, my reading chair relocated to make space for an exercise machine. Nothing overtly hostile, but 1,000 small eliminations of my presence that speak volumes about Daniel's mindset during my hospitalization. With Eliza's efficient help, we begin the process of reclamation, restoring my belongings to their proper places, removing evidence of unwelcome female visitors, reestablishing the balance of the space. The physical activity taxes my limited stamina, but provides psychological benefit that outweighs the fatigue. By late afternoon, the master suite, kitchen, and living areas have been subtly transformed back to spaces that feel like mine as well as his. Exhausted but satisfied, I settle onto the living room sofa while Eliza prepares a light meal compatible with my dietary restrictions. The sound of a key in the front door interrupts this moment of hard-won peace. Daniel enters, stopping abruptly, when he sees me comfortable established in what he clearly expected to be an empty house. "You're here," he observes unnecessarily, his expression unreadable. "I thought the discharge was scheduled for later this week." "Plans change," I reply, calmly. Dr. Jenkins approved an earlier release given my progress. Daniel's gaze travels around the reclaimed space, noting the restored photographs, rearranged furniture, and removed evidence of other female presence. "I see you've been busy." "Eliza has been a tremendous help," I acknowledge, gesturing toward the kitchen where the home health aide continues meal preparation, deliberately within earshot. Daniel processes this new information, the presence of a witness in what he likely anticipated would be private confrontation. His expression shifts as he adjusts his approach. "Well," he says with forced casualness, "welcome home. I'm sure you're glad to be out of the hospital." "Very much so," I agree, maintaining neutral politeness, though full recovery will take time. An awkward silence stretches between us, filled with unspoken accusations and unacknowledged betrayals. Finally, Daniel gestures vaguely toward the stairs. "I'll be working in the home office if you need anything." "Of course," I respond with matching civility. "Dinner will be ready around 6 if you'd care to join us." He hesitates, clearly thrown by this mundane domesticity amid our fractured relationship. "I have plans this evening. Don't wait up." As he disappears upstairs, I release a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Our first encounter complete, without overt confrontation, a temporary peace that feels both relieving and precarious. Eliza emerges from the kitchen, her expression suggesting she's missed nothing of our interaction. "Interesting," she observes simply. "Your meal is ready whenever you'd like it, Mrs. Wilson." The remainder of the evening passes quietly. I eat the simple but nutritious meal Eliza has prepared, take my prescribed medications, and retire early to the reclaimed master bedroom. Daniel hasn't returned by the time sleep claims me, my body still requiring extra rest as part of the healing process. I wake to sunlight streaming through familiar windows, momentarily disoriented by the transition from hospital to home. The bedside clock reads 8:17 a.m., later than I've slept in months, a testimony to both physical exhaustion and the comfort of my own bed. Voices drift up from the kitchen, Eliza's practical tone and, surprisingly, Daniel's deeper responses. The domestic normalcy of morning conversation feels surreal given our circumstances. After completing morning medications and a shower that still requires more effort than it should, I dress in comfortable clothes and make my way downstairs. The scene in the kitchen presents a picture of ordinary married life that contradicts our reality. Daniel in business casual at the breakfast bar with coffee and the Wall Street Journal, Eliza preparing what appears to be oatmeal with fresh berries. "Good morning," I greet them, accepting the strange normality for what it is, a temporary social performance. "Emma," Daniel acknowledges with careful neutrality. "How did you sleep?" "Better than in months," I answer honestly. My own bed was exactly what I needed. Daniel nods, returning to his newspaper as Eliza serves my breakfast with medication. Reminders. The mundane morning routine continues with surface civility that makes no reference to trust fund audits, financial suspensions, or betrayals, personal and financial. As Daniel prepares to leave for whatever constitutes his workday, now that trust fund access has been restricted, he pauses at the kitchen doorway. "Will you be here when I return?" The question carries layers of meaning beyond the immediate query about my physical location. "This is my home," I reply simply, "at least during my recovery period." Something flickers across his features. Frustration, calculation, resignation. before he nods once and departs without further comment. After the front door closes, Eliza regards me thoughtfully. "Interesting dynamic," she observes. "Just so you know, the security team sent a text while you were sleeping. They're maintaining discreet surveillance, and the new system is functioning properly." I appreciate her direct acknowledgement of the unusual circumstances. "Thank you, Eliza. I expect there will be an adjustment period while we establish whatever comes next." The day unfolds with unexpected peacefulness. Physical therapist Melissa arrives for my first at-home session, focusing on rebuilding strength diminished by months of hospitalization. The exertion leaves me tired but accomplished, another step toward reclaiming my physical capabilities. In the afternoon, Olivia visits with updates on the ongoing trust fund audit and legal considerations. We sit in the garden room, spring sunshine warming the space as she reviews developments. The forensic accountants have traced approximately 70% of the misappropriated funds, she explains. Some went to obvious luxury purchases and the relationship with Megan Lawson, but a concerning amount appears to have been invested in high-risk ventures that have since lost value. "How much are we talking about?" I ask. Preliminary estimates suggest Daniel has misappropriated approximately $7 million over 18 months. Of that, nearly $400,000 has been effectively lost in failed investments or depreciating assets. The scale of financial mismanagement is staggering, even given what I already knew. What happens next? The Trust Committee meets again next week to review complete findings. They'll determine whether to pursue criminal charges or handle the giddy matter privately with permanent restrictions on Daniel's access. Olivia hesitates before adding, "Nathan Wilson has requested your input on this decision. The responsibility is unexpected and weighty. Criminal charges would irreparably damage Daniel's future prospects and devastate Grace, while private resolution might fail to instill lasting consequences for actions that warrant serious repercussions. I need time to consider the implications," I tell Olivia, "for everyone involved." She nods understanding. "The committee doesn't require your decision until next Wednesday. Take the time you need." Changing topics, she asks, "How are things here? Any concerning interactions?" "Surprisingly civil," I admit, though the situation feels inherently unstable, like we're both performing normalcy while awaiting the other's next move. "The security team remains in place," Olivia reassures me, "and the emergency restraining order is ready if needed. Don't hesitate to use these resources if anything feels threatening." After Olivia leaves, I rest as Dr. Jenkins instructed, conserving energy for continued recovery. By evening, there's still no sign of Daniel, though a text arrives around 7. "Working late? Don't wait up." The familiar message carries bitter irony given what I now know about his late work patterns. During my illness, I don't respond, instead focusing on the recovery journey that remains my primary priority, regardless of marital complications. Wednesday brings my first follow-up appointment with Dr. Jenkins. Eliza drives me to his office where blood work and examination confirm continuing improvement. "You're progressing well," he assures me. "Continue the current medication protocol, maintain moderate activity levels, and prioritize nutrition and rest." Returning home, I find Daniel in the kitchen preparing what appears to be a simple lunch. The domesticity feels jarring given our circumstances. "Doctor's appointment?" he inquires with surface politeness. "Yes. Follow up with Dr. Jenkins." "Good news, I hope." "Continuing improvement," I confirm, maintaining the strange civility we've established. He's pleased with my progress. Daniel nods, focusing on his sandwich preparation with unnecessary intensity. "The Trust Committee meets again next week," he says finally, addressing the elephant in the room for the first time since my return. "Yes," I acknowledge, seeing no benefit in pretending ignorance. "They're considering criminal charges." His voice remains carefully neutral despite the serious subject. That's one possibility under consideration. Daniel turns to face me, fully abandoning pretense of casual lunch preparation. You have influence in this decision. Nathan values your perspective. I meet his gaze steadily. I'm aware. Criminal charges would permanently damage my career prospects, my reputation, my future. For once, his tone lacks manipulation or charm, just stark acknowledgement of potential consequences. Actions have consequences, Daniel. You made choices, knowing the risks. His jaw tightens momentarily before he controls the reaction. I made mistakes, serious ones. I acknowledge that. He pauses, measuring his next words carefully. But criminal charges won't recover the funds or repair what's been damaged. They'll only ensure destruction without redemption. The argument isn't without merit, though it conveniently focuses on his future rather than accountability for past actions. I consider my response carefully. What would redemption look like from your perspective? The question seems to catch him off guard. He expected either immediate rejection or negotiation, not philosophical inquiry about moral restoration. I would accept permanent oversight of my financial activities, restricted trust access, with accountability measures, community service, financial counseling. He hesitates before adding, and I would agree to divorce terms that acknowledge my misconduct without requiring lengthy legal battles that would only damage the family further. The comprehensive nature of his response suggests he's given this considerable thought, not a desperate improvisation, but a prepared position. You've been speaking with attorneys, I observe. Yes, he acknowledges. Reality has become unavoidably clear since the trust committee meeting. A strange moment of honest communication stretches between us, the first in longer than I can remember. No charm offensive, no manipulation, no deflection. Just recognition of circumstances as they truly exist. I'll consider your perspective when the committee seeks my input, I tell him finally. That's all I can promise. He nods once, accepting this limited commitment. Thank you. As I turn to leave the kitchen, Daniel adds, For what it's worth, I never wished for your illness. Whatever else you believe about me, please know that. The statement hovers in the air between us, insufficient as apology, incomplete as explanation, yet perhaps the most genuine communication we've shared in months. I acknowledge his words with a slight nod before continuing to my room, processing this unexpected interaction and its implications for the decisions that lie ahead. The path forward remains uncertain, but for the first time, I glimpse possibility of resolution that serves justice without embracing destruction for its own sake. The remainder of the week establishes a strange routine in our fractured household. Daniel and I maintaining careful distance and surface civility, Eliza providing both medical support and subtle social buffer, security personnel maintaining discreet presence outside. We orbit each other in familiar spaces made foreign by new knowledge and altered relationship dynamics. By Sunday evening, my strength has improved noticeably with proper nutrition, physical therapy, and home comforts. As I prepare for the trust committee meeting scheduled for Wednesday, I find myself contemplating not just appropriate consequences for Daniel's actions, but what true justice might look like for all involved. Monday morning brings an unexpected visitor. Grace Wilson appears at our door shortly after Daniel leaves for whatever constitutes his workday now. Her appearance is impeccable as always, though subtle signs of strain show in her tired eyes and slightly less perfect makeup. Emma, darling. She greets me with genuine warmth despite the circumstances. I hope I'm not interrupting your recovery. Routine? Not at all, I assure her, genuinely pleased to see my mother-in-law despite the undoubtedly difficult conversation ahead. Come in. Eliza was just preparing tea. As we settle in the sunroom overlooking the garden, Grace studies me with careful attention. You look so much better, she observes. Being home has clearly been beneficial. It has, I agree, though recovery remains a process. A moment of silence stretches between us, both acknowledging the elephant in the room without immediately addressing it. Finally, Grace speaks with uncharacteristic directness. The trust committee meets Wednesday to determine final actions regarding Daniel's situation. Her voice falters slightly on the last word, unable to directly name her son's betrayals. Yes, I confirm gently. Nathan mentioned they've requested my input on potential outcomes. Grace nods, her perfectly manicured hands clasping tightly in her lap. That's why I've come. Not to influence your decision inappropriately, but to share perspective you might not have considered. I wait, giving her space to continue. Daniel has made terrible mistakes, she acknowledges, the admission clearly painful. Choices that have hurt you deeply, betrayed family trust, and damaged his own integrity. There's no excusing that. She pauses, gathering her thoughts. But I wonder if you know the full context of his relationship with achievement and recognition. I'm listening, I assure her, genuinely curious about Grace's perspective. Nathan built his company from nothing, a genuine self-made success story. His achievements cast a long shadow that Daniel has lived in since childhood. Grace's gaze turns distant with memory. While Nathan saw setting high expectations as motivation, Daniel experienced them as impossible standards he could never quite reach through legitimate means. That might explain certain behaviors, I acknowledge, but it doesn't excuse financial fraud or personal betrayal. Of course not, Grace agrees quickly. I'm not suggesting otherwise. Only that understanding, the root may help in determining appropriate consequences. She hesitates before continuing. Criminal charges would permanently destroy any chance for Daniel to rebuild his life or restore his integrity. I wonder if that ultimate destruction serves true justice or merely punishment. The distinction she draws echoes my own recent contemplation about the nature of appropriate consequences versus pure retribution. The morning of the trust committee meeting dawns clear and bright, sunlight streaming through my bedroom windows as if nature itself approves of the decisions that lie ahead. I've slept better than expected, a strange calm having settled over me since my conversations with Grace and Daniel. The path forward seems clearer now. Not easy, but right. Eliza helps me prepare for the day with her characteristic efficiency, laying out a navy blue suit that conveys appropriate seriousness without appearing theatrical. My health has improved enough that I can manage most self-care independently, though the effort still leaves me more fatigued than I'd like to admit. You look strong, Eliza observes as I finish applying subtle makeup. Professional. Ready. I meet my reflection's eyes in the mirror, seeing not just the physical improvements of recent weeks, but a clarity and purpose that transcends my recovering body. I feel ready, I acknowledge, for whatever comes next. My phone chimes with a message from Olivia confirming our meeting before the trust committee convenes. She'll arrive in an hour to review final strategy and documentation. Another message follows immediately. Nathan checking on my well-being and confirming transportation arrangements. The support network that has emerged during my recovery continues to function with reassuring reliability. Daniel left the house early this morning, presumably to meet with his attorney before the afternoon's proceedings. Our brief interaction consisted only of polite acknowledgement and careful distance, the strange civility of people sharing space, while separated by betrayal and consequences. His overnight bag suggested he's prepared for my requirement that he vacate the home immediately, regardless of the committee's decision. Olivia arrives precisely on schedule, her portfolio containing meticulously organized documentation of Daniel's financial misdeeds alongside the alternative consequence proposal we've developed. She reviews key points while we share tea in the sunroom, her characteristic thoroughness oddly comforting amid the emotional complexity of the day. The forensic accountants completed their final report last night, she informs me, passing over a sealed envelope. You might want to review the summary before the meeting. I open the document with steady hands, scanning figures that would have shocked me months ago, but now only confirm what I already suspected. The total misappropriation exceeds $1. $7 million over 18 months, coinciding exactly with the onset of my first symptoms through my prolonged hospitalization. Nearly 40% was directed toward Megan Lawson through various channels, with the remainder split between luxury purchases, high-risk investments, and cash withdrawals that remain partially untraceable. Any surprises? Olivia asks, noting my composed review. Only confirmation, I reply, returning the documents to their envelope. The timeline matches my illness exactly. He began exploiting access the moment my attention was compromised by health concerns. Olivia nods, her expression professional yet sympathetic. That timeline strengthens the case for calculated exploitation rather than impulsive mistakes. Premeditation matters in how the committee will view appropriate consequences. Yet we're still recommending rehabilitation over criminal charges, I observe, testing my own resolve in this decision. Because you believe true justice isn't measured solely by punishment, Olivia responds, her tone free of judgment either way. And because you've considered impacts beyond just Daniel, for his parents, the family legacy, and even your own healing process. Her summary affirms the reasoning behind my approach. This isn't about forgiveness. Daniel hasn't earned that and may never do so. It's about choosing consequences that serve restoration rather than mere retribution, that acknowledge complexity without excusing betrayal. Are you absolutely certain about your recommendation? Olivia asks, offering one final opportunity to reconsider. The evidence would fully support criminal prosecution. No one would question that choice. I'm certain, I confirm, not because Daniel deserves leniency, but because this approach better serves justice for everyone involved. She nods, accepting my decision with professional respect. Then let's review the specific conditions once more. We spend the next 30 minutes refining language around financial oversight requirements, counseling expectations, community service parameters, and divorce settlement principles. The conditions must be specific enough to ensure accountability, while allowing the trust administrators flexibility in implementation. By early afternoon, we're prepared for the committee meeting at First Cascadia Financial's downtown offices. Nathan has arranged for Michael to drive us, acknowledging my still limited stamina despite improving health. The journey through Portland's familiar streets feels somehow symbolic, moving from the private space of betrayal toward the public forum of accountability. First Cascadia's headquarters embodies old money discretion, understated elegance that whispers rather than shouts of wealth and influence. The trust administration offices occupy the top floor, offering sweeping views of the Willamette River and distant mountains through discreetly tinted windows. We're escorted to a conference room where the 5-member trust committee awaits, distinguished financial professionals who oversee the Wilson family trust with appropriate gravity. Nathan sits at one end of the polished mahogany table, his expression carefully neutral despite the personal nature of these proceedings. Daniel and his attorney wait at the opposite end, both rising as I enter. I notice immediately that Daniel has chosen conservative attire, a simple dark suit that conveys appropriate seriousness without the flashy accessories or designer labels that might antagonize committee members already aware of his financial excesses. His expression remains unreadable as we exchange brief nods of acknowledgement. Mrs. Wilson, the committee chairwoman, greets me with professional courtesy. Thank you for joining us today. Your perspective is valued in these deliberations. I take my seat beside Olivia, acutely aware of the unusual dynamics in this formal setting where family drama meets financial oversight. The next hour proceeds with meticulous professionalism. Forensic accountants present their completed findings. Trust administrators outline potential remedies. Attorneys discuss legal implications of various approaches. The scale of Daniel's financial misconduct becomes starkly evident through these presentations. Beyond simple misappropriation, the forensic team has identified systematic deception, falsified investment reports, fabricated business expenses, unauthorized art sales, and communication with offshore banking entities suggesting plans for larger-scale fund transfers had my illness progressed toward the terminal outcome he apparently anticipated. Daniel sits perfectly still throughout these revelations. His expression controlled, though I notice the slight tension in his jaw when particularly damning evidence is presented. His attorney takes occasional notes, but offers no objections or interruptions. The evidence is simply too comprehensive and well-documented for effective challenge. When invited to address the committee regarding appropriate consequences, Daniel's attorney speaks with careful restraint. Mr. Wilson acknowledges serious lapses in judgment during a period of personal stress related to his wife's illness. He begins, the characterization drawing a subtle shift in my expression that doesn't go unnoticed by committee members. While these actions cannot be excused, the attorney continues, we ask the committee to consider contextual factors including Mr. Wilson's previously unblemished record, his willingness to accept appropriate consequences, and the potential value of rehabilitation over punitive measures that would permanently damage his future prospects. The committee listens with non-committal expressions, years of professional neutrality evident in their carefully maintained composure. When invited to speak himself, Daniel stands with visible humility. Whether genuine or strategic remains unclear. I recognize the seriousness of my actions, he acknowledges, his voice steady despite the circumstances. I betrayed not just the trust placed in me regarding family assets, but more importantly, the trust of my wife during her greatest vulnerability. He pauses, meeting my eyes directly for the first time today. There's no justification for what I did. I can only accept full responsibility and whatever consequences the committee deems appropriate. The performance seems sincere, though experience has taught me to question Daniel's apparent contrition. Still, something in his demeanor suggests this might represent genuine recognition of his situation rather than merely tactical positioning. When finally invited to provide my recommendation, I speak with clear purpose and measured tone. The evidence presented today clearly establishes systematic misappropriation of trust assets, intentional deception of family members, and violation of fiduciary responsibilities, I acknowledge, maintaining professional composure despite the personal nature of these betrayals. These actions represent calculated exploitation of my medical vulnerability and warrant serious consequences that ensure both accountability and prevention of similar behavior in future. The committee members nod in agreement, likely anticipating my support for criminal proceedings given the extent and nature of documented fraud. However, I continue, I believe the interests of all parties, including the Wilson family legacy, might be better served through structured rehabilitation, rather than permanent destruction of future prospects. I outline my proposed alternative. Permanent financial oversight with no independent access to trust assets, mandatory ethics counseling with regular reporting to the committee, substantial community service focusing specifically on financial, ethics education, cooperative divorce proceedings that acknowledge misconduct without requiring extended legal battles, and immediate removal from our shared residence to facilitate my continued recovery. These measures provide significant consequences while allowing possibility for rehabilitation, I conclude. They protect the family from further financial harm while acknowledging the human complexities of this situation and the value of potential redemption over permanent punishment. The committee chairwoman studies me carefully. You've been the most directly harmed by these actions, Mrs. Wilson, both financially and personally. Your recommendation for measured consequences rather than maximum punishment carries considerable weight in our deliberations. Nathan speaks for the first time since the formal proceedings began. I support Emma's recommendation. These consequences represent substantial accountability, without being purely punitive. They protect the family's financial interests while allowing possibility for my son to learn and grow from these serious mistakes. The committee confers briefly before the chairwoman addresses Daniel directly. Mr. Wilson, do you understand and accept these terms as presented? Daniel stands, appearing genuinely humbled by the proceedings. I do. I acknowledge my actions, accept these consequences, and commit to the rehabilitation process outlined. Then, subject to implementation of specific oversight mechanisms our legal team will establish, the committee accepts this resolution. The chairwoman's tone makes clear that this represents Daniel's final opportunity. Any future financial impropriety will result in immediate criminal referral with no further consideration of alternative remedies. As the meeting concludes, with formal documentation of these decisions, I experience neither triumph nor regret. Only a quiet certainty that this resolution serves true justice without embracing destruction for its own sake. Nathan approaches as we prepare to leave. You continue to demonstrate remarkable wisdom and compassion, Emma, he says quietly. I'm grateful for your presence in our family, regardless of what happens with your marriage to Daniel. His words affirm the choice I've made, acknowledging that true justice must balance accountability with potential for growth rather than simple retribution. Outside the conference room, Daniel waits with his attorney, clearly hoping for a moment of private conversation. I nod to Olivia, indicating my willingness to speak with him briefly. Thank you, he says simply when we step aside. I know you had every reason to pursue maximum consequences. This isn't absolution, I clarify. It's an opportunity to face your actions and perhaps become someone different. I understand. He hesitates before adding, for what it's worth, despite everything, I did love you in my way, just not enough to overcome my own worst instincts. The acknowledgement is perhaps the most honest thing he's said in years, recognition of his limitations without excusing them. I hope you find better instincts moving forward, Daniel. No dramatic goodbyes or emotional promises, just acknowledgement of a chapter closing with appropriate gravity. As Michael drives me home, I watch Portland's familiar skyline with a sense of peace I haven't felt in months. The justice I sought has been achieved, not through destruction, but through boundaries that protect while allowing potential for change. The following days establish new rhythms in my recovering life. Daniel returns briefly to collect essential belongings, maintaining the careful civility that has characterized our interactions since confrontation. With Eliza's help, I gradually reclaim spaces that had been subtle battlegrounds, returning photographs, rearranging furniture to suit my preferences, eliminating traces of other women from what is now definitively my home. Physical therapy sessions build strength steadily. Dr. Jenkins confirms continuing improvement at each follow-up appointment. My medications gradually decrease as my body responds to treatment and recovery protocols. Each small victory over illness represents reclamation not just of health, but of independence compromised by both disease and deception. 2 weeks after the trust committee meeting, I receive formal divorce papers from Daniel's attorney. True, to his word, the settlement acknowledges his misconduct without requiring protracted legal battles. The terms reflect our discussions: financial provisions respecting my role in the marriage and current health needs, division of assets that acknowledges his misconduct, clear protocols for any necessary future interactions. After careful review, with Olivia, I sign the documents that officially begin dissolution of our 6-year marriage. The process feels surprisingly calm, not because the betrayal hurt any less, but because the path toward resolution has been cleared of unnecessary conflict and manipulation. That same afternoon, Grace visits bearing an unexpected gift, a small wooden box containing the jade pendant that has been passed through Wilson women for generations. This belongs to you, she insists when I express surprise. Your place in This family doesn't end with the divorce papers you signed this morning. How did you know about the papers? I ask, touched by her continued connection despite everything. Daniel told me, she explains. He's different since the committee meeting. More reflective, taking responsibility in ways I haven't seen before. She meets my eyes directly. The consequences you chose might actually be helping him become someone better. I hope so, I respond sincerely, for everyone's sake. As we share tea in the garden room, Grace shares updates I wouldn't otherwise receive. Daniel has leased a modest apartment downtown, begun his ethics counseling with apparent sincerity, and initiated the required community service with financial literacy programs serving low-income communities. Nathan and I worried that your decision against criminal charges might reflect lingering emotional attachment, Grace admits carefully. But I see now it came from somewhere deeper. Wisdom about what true justice requires. Justice and vengeance are different paths, I observe. One destroys, the other transforms. Grace reaches across the table to squeeze my hand. You transformed betrayal into wisdom. That's a gift few possess. After she leaves, I sit quietly in the garden room, the jade pendant cool against my palm. The Wilson family heritage it represents now connects to me in ways beyond marriage. Through demonstrated character rather than legal relationship, the acknowledgement touches me deeply, affirming choices made from integrity rather than emotion. As spring transitions toward summer, my physical recovery progresses steadily. The autoimmune condition that threatened my life remains in remission, though ongoing maintenance medications and monitoring remain necessary. By late June, Dr. Jenkins reduces my restrictions significantly, allowing greater independence and activity. Your recovery has been remarkable, he observes during a follow-up appointment, both physically and emotionally. Not everyone manages health crises and personal betrayal simultaneously with such resilience. I had excellent medical care. I acknowledge with genuine gratitude, and discovered strength I didn't know I possessed. With improving health comes increasing clarity about future possibilities. My professional background in financial analysis, the very expertise Daniel consistently dismissed throughout our marriage, now represents potential for renewed purpose. The experience of tracking financial discrepancies from my hospital bed revealed skills that remain sharp, despite months of illness. In July, Nathan invites me to lunch at his favorite restaurant overlooking the Willamette River. Though technically no longer my father-in-law given the divorce proceedings, our relationship has evolved beyond legal definitions to something based on mutual respect and shared values. The Trust Administration Committee has been discussing increased protection measures for beneficiaries experiencing health crises, he mentions as we enjoy a leisurely meal. Your situation highlighted vulnerabilities in existing protocols that should be addressed. I nod understanding. Periods of medical vulnerability create particular financial risks, especially when family members have mixed motivations. Exactly, Nathan agrees. Which leads me to a proposition. The committee is considering creating a special advisory position focusing on protection measures for exactly this situation. Someone with both financial expertise and personal understanding of these vulnerabilities. I set down my fork, recognizing the implication. You're suggesting me for this position. Your experience provides unique qualification, Nathan confirms. Professional financial background combined with first-hand understanding of exploitation during medical crisis. That perspective doesn't exist elsewhere in the trust administration. The opportunity resonates immediately, using painful experience to help protect others from similar vulnerability. I'd be interested in discussing this possibility further, I tell him honestly. The committee would want a formal proposal, Nathan explains. Your vision for implementing these protections, potential protocols, educational components for beneficiaries. They're prepared to offer appropriate compensation for both development and ongoing advisory services. We discuss general parameters for the potential position, the conversation energizing me in ways I haven't experienced since before my illness. The possibility of transforming personal betrayal into professional purpose offers perfect symmetry, making meaning from suffering by using it to prevent harm to others. By August, my divorce from Daniel becomes final. A surprisingly straightforward legal process given our prenuptial agreement and his acceptance of responsibility for financial misconduct. The Trust Committee's oversight measures remain firmly in place, with Daniel demonstrating unexpected compliance with all requirements. On a perfect late summer afternoon, Olivia joins me for lunch on the garden terrace of what is now legally and unquestionably my home. The property represents not victory over Daniel, but recognition of basic justice after long betrayal. Acknowledgement that my recovery requires stability and continuation of the medical support systems established here. Have you thought about what comes next? Olivia asks as we enjoy fresh salads in the dappled sunlight. Your health has improved dramatically. The divorce is finalized, financial security established. What does Emma Wilson want for her future? I gaze across the garden that I've slowly reclaimed during my recovery, planting new flowers that symbolize this period of renewal. I'm developing a proposal for the Trust Committee, a comprehensive protection program for beneficiaries experiencing health crises. Nathan believes they'll approve both development funding and an ongoing advisory position. Turning hardship into specialized expertise, Olivia observes. Very fitting. It feels right, I acknowledge. Using what I've learned to help prevent similar exploitation for others. And personally, she asked gently, beyond professional direction, I consider the question with careful honesty. I'm relearning who I am beyond Daniel's wife or the sick woman, rediscovering interests and connections that were gradually diminished during the marriage. It's a process of reclamation, of myself, not just my health or finances. Olivia smiles with genuine warmth. To reclamation, then, she says, raising her iced tea in a small toast, and to new beginnings built on hard-earned wisdom. As summer transitions to autumn, my proposal to the Trust Committee receives enthusiastic approval. The Wilson Family Trust Protection Program will develop comprehensive measures specifically designed to safeguard vulnerable beneficiaries during health crises. Financial monitoring systems, specialized power of attorney provisions, educational, resources and ethical guidelines for family members managing affairs during medical emergencies. The trust itself continues under new governance protocols developed partly through my input, protecting the legacy Nathan built while allowing appropriate supervised access for family members, including Daniel under his new restrictions. The key art collection has been fully reinstated to trust protection, with additional security measures preventing future unauthorized sales. I occasionally receive updates about Daniel's progress through Nathan and Grace, who maintain appropriate family connections while respecting my need for distance. He's secured modest employment with a friend's company, continues his ethical rehabilitation program, and apparently speaks candidly about his past mistakes as cautionary lessons. The consequences I chose seem to be achieving their intended purpose, accountability, that promotes growth rather than simply inflicting punishment. On a crisp October morning, exactly 1 year after my initial hospitalization, I stand in my garden watching golden leaves drift from maple trees. My body has healed remarkably, strength returned to limbs once weakened by illness. My mind feels similarly restored, clarity emerging from the fog of betrayal and recovery. My phone rings with a call from the Trust Committee chairwoman, following up on the protection program implementation. The initial protocols have been extraordinarily well received, she informs me. 3 other family trusts have already requested consultation on implementing similar measures. The validation affirms the program's value beyond my personal situation. I'm pleased to hear that, I respond. Vulnerability during health crises is unfortunately common. Protective measures should be similarly widespread. The committee has authorized expanding your advisory role, she continues. with appropriate compensation increases to reflect the program's success and growing demand for consultation. As we discuss implementation details, I reflect on the strange journey that brought me here. What began as devastating betrayal during my greatest vulnerability has transformed into specialized expertise and renewed purpose. Daniel's attempt to exploit my illness became instead the catalyst for my empowerment and others' protection. That evening, I host a small dinner gathering. Olivia, Dr. Jenkins, and his wife, two friends who provided unwavering support during my illness, and surprisingly, Nathan and Grace. Not technically family by law anymore, but connected through something perhaps more meaningful, shared values and demonstrated character rather than mere legal relationship. As we enjoy a meal catered to accommodate my still careful dietary needs, conversation flows with genuine warmth and occasional laughter. No dramatic toasts or ceremonial acknowledgments of the anniversary, just quiet celebration of recovery, renewal, and relationships that survived extraordinary challenges. After the guests depart, I sit on my terrace watching Portland's lights illuminate the gathering dusk. My home, once a symbol of married life, now represents independence reclaimed through difficult choices and careful planning. The trust fund that Daniel attempted to plunder now supports both my security and my new professional direction, protecting others from similar exploitation. The path forward stretches before me, no longer shadowed by betrayal or illness, but brightened by purpose, discovered through adversity. Daniel's greatest mistake wasn't just misusing the trust fund, it was underestimating the woman he married, assuming vulnerability equated to powerlessness. As I learned during those long hospital days tracking financial discrepancies from my hospital bed, sometimes apparent weakness conceals unexpected strength. Sometimes the person you discount as too ill to notice becomes the very one who holds you accountable. I raise my evening tea in a small, private toast to lessons learned and wisdom earned, to the unexpected journey from betrayal to justice, to the strength found in vulnerability and the power of choosing consequences that serve healing rather than merely punishment. Most of all, to the discovery that true justice isn't about retribution, but restoration, not just of accounts and balances, but of truth, self-respect, and possibilities that extend beyond the shadows of past betrayals into the promise of future growth. What I've learned through this difficult journey extends far beyond financial oversight or trust fund management. I've discovered profound truths about resilience, forgiveness, and the quiet power of choosing wisdom over vengeance. When life delivers its hardest blows, whether illness, betrayal, or both intertwined as in my case, we face a fundamental choice about how to respond. Will we allow the pain to harden us into bitterness, or will we transform that suffering into greater compassion and understanding? The easier path is often retribution. The braver path is measured justice that allows for redemption. My decision to recommend consequences that offered Daniel a chance at rehabilitation rather than destruction wasn't weakness. It was perhaps the greatest strength I've ever demonstrated. It required looking beyond my own hurt to consider what would truly serve healing for all involved. This doesn't mean ignoring or excusing betrayal, but rather responding to it with clarity and purpose rather than reaction and rage. The ancient wisdom that living well is the best revenge has revealed its truth in my life. My success as a consultant helping others protect their financial security during health crises represents the perfect response to Daniel's attempt to exploit my illness. What he intended for harm has become my unique qualification for helping others. In the years since my hospital stay, countless people have reached out to share similar stories of vulnerability exploited by those they trusted. Each time I listen, I'm reminded that my experience, though painful, has equipped me to offer both practical guidance and emotional understanding that textbook knowledge alone could never provide. This transformation from victim to guide for others represents the most powerful form of reclamation. When we take our darkest experiences and use them to create light for others, we transcend our own story to become part of something larger, a ripple of positive change extending far beyond our individual circumstances. I've also learned the profound difference between justice and vengeance. Vengeance seeks to inflict suffering equal to what was experienced. Justice seeks to restore balance and create conditions for healing and growth. Choosing justice requires greater courage and wisdom, but its rewards reach far beyond the momentary satisfaction of retribution. The relationships I've maintained with Nathan and Grace demonstrate another important truth. Family extends beyond legal ties or blood relations to encompass those who choose to remain connected through difficult transformations. Their continued presence in my life, symbolized by the jade pendant passed through generations of Wilson women, reminds me that genuine connection transcends even the most painful ruptures. As I build this new chapter of my life, I carry forward not just the lessons of betrayal, but the deeper wisdom of recovery. I understand now that our greatest vulnerability can become our greatest strength when we approach it with courage and clarity. I recognize that true power isn't found in controlling others, but in governing ourselves with integrity and purpose. Each morning as I walk through my garden, the garden I replanted during recovery with flowers symbolizing renewal, I'm reminded that growth always follows necessary pruning. The most beautiful blooms often come after the harshest winters. My life, like this garden, has required careful tending through seasons of illness and betrayal, but emerges more vibrant for having weathered these challenges. For anyone facing similar trials, I offer this hard-earned wisdom. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Document everything when questions arise. Seek allies who bring both professional expertise and emotional support. Remember that your vulnerability doesn't diminish your value or voice. And when the time comes for decisions about consequences, choose the path that serves healing rather than simply punishment. The journey from betrayal to justice isn't easy, but its rewards extend far beyond financial restoration. In choosing thoughtful consequences rather than maximum punishment, I discovered my own capacity for wisdom. In rebuilding my health and independence, I found strength I never knew I possessed. And in transforming painful experience into help for others, I created meaning from what could have remained merely suffering. This is the alchemy of adversity, turning life's darkest moments into something that shines with purpose. This is the ultimate justice, not destruction of the one who harmed you, but transformation of yourself into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than before. As Portland's lights twinkle below my terrace, I raise my tea in one final toast to all who find themselves vulnerable yet vigilant, betrayed yet brave, recovering yet resolute. May you discover, as I have, that your greatest challenges can become your most powerful teachers, guiding you toward a future brighter than any you might have imagined before the storm. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.